Welcome back to the report. An East London cab driver has been accused of recruiting for ISIS. He denies the charges. Yasmin Khatun takes a look at this case.
A 24-year-old British man has been arrested on suspicion of recruiting people to fight in Syria. Arrested in Bangladesh, the Londoner hails from just down the road behind me. Produced in court in Dhaka on Monday, he was remanded in custody for 3 days under Bangladesh's Anti-Terrorism Act. Mr. Rahman has denied the charges and said he has no involvement in terrorism. He has been accused of criminal conspiracy and supporting a banned organisation and is thought to have travelled to Syria before entering Bangladesh. If he is found guilty, he could be sentenced to life imprisonment. Dhaka police say he has confessed to recruiting in Bangladesh on behalf of Islamic State and Jabhat al-Nusra fighting in Syria. Speaking to human rights advocacy group CAGE, Bangladesh National Human Rights Commission Chairman Professor Mizanur Rahman said, "There is a high likelihood that the alleged confession was elicited under torture and that Rahman will be facing further torture in custody." We asked the Home Office if they had made any contact with the Bangladeshi government about Rahman's case. They said, "This individual has not been in the UK for over 2 years and is currently in the hands of the Bangladeshi authorities." The case comes amid an international crackdown on Muslims who have travelled to Syria and a highly politicised trial in Bangladesh. But as worries grow over this particular case, it's still highly unlikely the British government will get involved. Yasmin Khatun, The Report.
Well, to discuss this, I'm joined on Skype from Belfast by Mufassil Islam, a human rights lawyer and blogger. Mufassil, welcome to the programme. So what do you make of this? Do you think it's right that this confession's been obtained under torture?
When you are talking about a country like Bangladesh, you have to take into account the judiciary, the legislature, and the executive. And I think the whole world knows now that the legislature is enacting laws, draconian laws, like the Anti-Terror Act of 2013 in June, where all the human rights and everything were just thrown to the bin. And that was condemned by international human rights groups, organizations, and other all rights human rights organizations like the Ain and Shalish Kendra to be a draconian law, where nobody has any right. On the other hand, the executive, the police enforcement authorities, and everybody, all other organizations, law enforcing organizations, are condemned by USA State Department report, UK country report, and everything. So torture is torture to pry out information is an accepted norm in the Bangladesh government. And also, when you're talking about the judiciary, there is no freedom of the judiciary either. Because if you look at the appointment of judges only a few years back, the judges were appointed against at the face of protest by all other judges and, of course, by lawyers who said the appointment of the judges were not according to the regular norms of the judiciary. And so when the judges can be impeached under the new upcoming bill for going against the government and their likings, so how can we have freedom of freedom of any kind of tribunal in Bangladesh or any freedom of the judiciary? There is none as such.
So,
given
this is the background, are you surprised by the Home Office statement? Because, you know, on your account, on the account of many observers, we've got a highly politicised and political judiciary. We've got the use of torture, and yet the Home Office's response is to say, well, he's been out of the country for 2 years. I mean, it sounds as if they're just not willing to defend a British citizen who's perhaps facing torture.
This is rather shocking because we must not forget this man is a British citizen and the British government cannot just wash their hands. First of all, they have a duty of care as well to a citizen. And we must also remember that I must correct, I'm sorry, the highest punishment this person can get is the death penalty, not life imprisonment. So we are talking about somebody getting possibilities out there, whether he might get a death penalty, and which is against the European Convention of Human Rights. And UK cannot allow that to happen unless they get involved with the system there, how to pry out information and how they are classifying somebody as a terrorist when Bangladesh doesn't have the access to international information to gather what this person is terrorist terrorist or not. The definition of terrorism is not clear either in the Anti-Terror Act of Bangladesh, which was drafted in a hurry. So I'm really shocked. But we must accept that we Muslims around the world, we condemn any kind of terrorism. The question is not whether this individual is a terrorist or not, but the question is whether a person is innocent until proven guilty, and whether the UK government stands for that. So will this person have that right for a fair trial? The answer is absolutely not.
So what could somebody who's trapped in this circumstance, what could their friends and their family, their supporters, what manner of redress is there in these circumstances?
The redress is that to press the British government to get actively involved in safeguarding, first of all, that the British citizen is not tortured, and there is a serious possibility that he will be tortured by a government which is well publicized around the world as a fascist government, which has ministries and ministers in the cabinet who hate people of religious Islamic faith. So the question is whether the British government should get involved or not. And our duty is to ensure that our fellow British citizen in Bangladesh must get the help of the British government, at least to have a fair trial in the procedure of investigation, in the procedure of fact-finding, because Bangladesh government doesn't have that kind of scientific or espionage or other help to get the truth from, especially from a war-torn area, because he's been charged with he's going to be probably charged for terrorism activities, for getting involved in ISIS. And how can Bangladesh?
Well, it looks as if we've lost that link now. I wonder if we'll be able to re-establish that. No, I'm afraid we're not going to be able to return to that discussion, which is a shame because we were learning quite a lot about the case of that cab driver there who's been arrested and possibly may face the death penalty. Well, I'm afraid that's all we're going to have time for on tonight's programme. I want to thank all of my guests and you at home for watching. Remember, you can keep up with our Twitter conversation on all tonight's stories by tweeting @IslamChannel and using the hashtag #TheReport. For now, we'll leave you with footage of pilgrims following in the footsteps of the Prophet Muhammad.